Tape down my watercolor paper. There should be a smooth side and a rough side. For this one, I made the bottom side go all the way across the bottom with that tape, so it's touching that, so I could still stick my finger under here, and then I had the other tape go halfway. Since this is just a practice one, I didn't measure it. So we are going to paint a horizon line first. I just realized that my picture is going straight up and down, kind of like a Polaroid picture. And I'm making kind of some wiggles. You can't really see that line, so let me turn that light on so you can see where the water's at just a little bit. Oh, that's a lot of light. That's almost too much light. There we go. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to get this whole page wet from right on up here. You can kind of see the water as it gets reflective. So I'm filling up this whole little area. You can have your paper turned to the side too. I just realized mine was going straight up and down. We're going to do some sky colors. So I have a blue here. That one's more of a blue-green. I'll start with purple. So I'm saving this color that I already did from yester class. I'm going to put some purple, and remember we like to watch the colors bleed together, but we got to move pretty fast. So I'm washing that color off in the right hand side because I'm right-handed, and now I'm going to mix it directly on the page that this is in. Left hand side, right hand side. And I'm going to have it be getting a little bit lighter towards the bottom. You can push these colors around and blend them together since this is all still wet because I'm working kind of fast. You can, I would recommend going side to side because we're in the sky, but also letting it just fade all around. I'm going to make my sky have a little bit of yellow down in there. We gotta be careful because when you mix that yellow together with the blue, it's going to make green, so I'm going to put a little bit of orange there. Of course, orange and blue makes brown. I think I'm going to bring that down a little bit. I just wanted to have some variety. If it gets too wet, we can change that. And then right here, going to add a little bit of red to buffer up that zone because red and blue make purple, and that's okay to do. You do not have to do these colors. I just wanted to show you a little way of doing some fun colors in the sky. Again, when you move that orange over into the blue, it will make a neutral color. And if you mess up and it's too watery, or if you want to do clouds, you can do little tiny paper towel splotches like this, and it will look like little clouds in the sky. So while that part's drying, I'm going to work on adding in some trees. We're going to prepare a few little dark, intense areas, and this is going to be some very distant trees in the background. So I'm going to get some dark green. I'm going to mix it in with this blue that I had here. To get my green darker and more intense, I would be careful with adding black. So I'm going to put some little distant trees, and we do want them to be kind of light. They should just fade out. They shouldn't really look like trees. They're just going to be blobs in the background. And we'll just fade out. Now I did have to wait for that to dry just a little bit. I'm just following through with the steps that are on that website that I put in your thing, so you can follow along with me and you can change it up. I'm going to have just a little tree right here. I do want some of that sun peeking through because I think that looks really cool right there. All right, and now while this is still just a little wet, I am going to pull that down because I don't want it to dry with a weird harsh line. I'm going to let that go. I like to let it fade down. So you can see that it's washing the colors down. Then I'm going to dab it up. Add some texture in there. So this is going to look very, very light until we add another layer at the end. Once it makes it a little bit darker, turning those lights off, you can see that the color is still pretty intense. But if I want to make it more intense, you can see now that I'm getting like harsh lines because my paper has dried. But I can rehydrate those edges and bring in a more vibrant color by getting some clean water. I did want it to be more vibrant. because that's what I like. Gonna add some like red violet up in here, and it's still pretty damp over here, so you can see it's spreading out naturally on its own, but I am cleaning off my brush, getting some fresh water, and I'm gonna spread that around. Okay, wanted to give this area just a little bit of time to dry, so that when I put my next layer on, it's still faded out, but it's not gonna smear completely. So it's still going to give me really neat, spidery, veiny effects. And I'm just using the tip of my pencil. Oh my gosh, this isn't a pencil. This is a paintbrush. Doing different styles here. I'm going to make this one bigger so those areas look like they're much farther in the distance. And then as it starts to dry, I'm going to add another layer to it to make it darker. I'm going to have some trees that look like they're in the foreground a little bit more. If you would like, you can add some brown to this. I'm going to add a little bit more green and some more blue. It needed to be more vibrant. Okay, I'm getting better about remembering which cup is my dirty water, which cup is my clean water. It's going to just keep on fading out, and it's going to be all over the place because it is still wet up here. But I did dry it off a little bit down here, so it's not bleeding as much, but it is still bleeding out in the background, so we've got some faded trees. I'm going to keep on layering these as it dries. I'm going to add more to this tree. My colors are a lot more vibrant than that one chick's on the website. I'm going to add a little bit of brown. So I got some water from my clean cup. I'm adding a little bit of brown to my blue-green, and I think that color is super duper rich. Yeah, that's going to get me some nice darker areas in the middle. I'm not trying to do this to make it look like I've got some twigs in it just yet. I'm just adding this to make it look like it's silhouetted against that sun that I made in the corner. And you can also start to, as it dries, see that it's leaving some textures, and I can do a little bit of a dry brush technique. But I needed to make my colors not as crazy vibrant, because those aren't really believable colors in my trees. And as it dries, it's going to be a little bit different. So I'm still trying to keep this all pretty wet on wet. And then next time I'll show you how to do wet on dry. But today we just have to really see that when things are very wet, it is going to create a very crazy style, very loose color scheme. So it looks like in the picture, maybe this is like snow that she was drawing, but I don't think it would be snow since my trees don't have snow on them. So I'm going to make it grass. I'm going off the literally off the beaten trail. She's got a trail in here. I'm getting it wet. I'm going to add a green. Oh, that's so cool. What it's doing is just pulling that color down. And this person left a little trail in here. In that. So I'm going to mark out where I want that trail to be. It's going from small area to a larger at the bottom. I'm just going to scroll down and look farther on this. Yeah, I'm going to look at the finished picture. Cool. All right, later I'm going to have to add more deets to my trees. Oh my god, just threw my paintbrush. Bet you're loving this. I'm going to add a little bit of this. I don't like how that, well, I don't hate it. Never mind, I had some yellow and green and I just mixed it together with that. Oh, got a little bit of orange in there. I like how that green turned out. I'm okay with that. I'm so okay with that. I think it needs some more brown. To have some more, ooh, that's too brown. This is going to look like I got dead grass. I'm going to liven it back up with some of my green. And I think a little touch of yellow. Yeah, I'm going to throw that orange in there. That looks more like ground cover and less like fake grass like that you would find at like the golf course, right? That seems more realistic. so that little area is where I want to do my grass, not my grass, it looks like a little water path. And the example that's on the website, it's all white right here where I'm painting it green, but I just wasn't feeling that, and you don't have to either. This is just my way of painting. It's my world. Just like Bob Ross says, this is what you get to paint. Got about 10 more minutes before my class comes in. You can fan it, blow on it just to let it dry a little bit. I know this is wet on wet, but I want to be able to do some controlled wet on wet now that this is dry. And as this is drying, I can add some more deets to my trees. I think it's coming along really well. It's supposed to be very faded, almost like it's a blurry picture. And then we'll add in some details. I'm gonna mix some green straight from my pan. I call them cakes. Using my dirty water because that's mostly green in there, to wash my brush off. I'm gonna add some more blue, and I think I don't need to add brown. I don't want to yet. Straight up. See how it's still bleeding and going wherever it wants. I want it to be tall. So I'm just using the tip of that brush. Adding just another layer. It doesn't mix in too much with the layer underneath it, but it does enough. I'm gonna have to let this dry some more. You have more time, those of you who are in my classroom. I don't have much time for this video before everybody comes in here. So I'm kind of rushing it. That's okay. I'm going to draw some other trees in the background. Those are some distant trees way back there, showing some perspective. Not all trees are very full. Some of them have really long twigs. I think when they show that, it looks better. Because look at how much this one's bled out. It's almost taken over my sun completely. Oh my gosh. That's crazy. It just keeps on spreading. So now we know when it gets wet and you put that water down, it's going to spread all over the place. Oof, that brown. That's basically all brown. I want to mix some of it into the trees, not really to represent tree trunks, but just to represent like the dirt a little bit there, give it some solid horizon. I'm using a dry brush to combine those. Well, it's damp. It's never quite dry with watercolor. Not this way. We'll put a twig in that later. Okay. Let's see, and if it's not drying quick enough for you, you can take your paper towel, dab it up, blow on it some more. I'm gonna pick my paper towel and make this side of my tree have some texture. Also to make that side a little bit lighter because it is catching that sunlight. But you do have to make sure that the paper towel that you are grabbing isn't dirty. I really want that area to be, oh yeah, now that has some variety to it. I want that area to be lighter. Okay. I'm going to mix up some water. This water looks a little bit more neutral. It has some orange in it. And then I'm going to mix my blue. I know it doesn't seem right to mix orange and blue together, but it helps dull it down. Oh, you couldn't see what I was doing. There was a little bit of orange and a little bit of blue in there, so it's not as vibrant. Oh, and I'm going to add my water, and it's going to bleed everywhere. Oh, nope, not bad, because I dried it off. But I don't want it to be a straight line, because that looks too man-made. It looks too fake. And I'm a woman. This is woman-made. This is Miss Bill-made. I think I got jokes. Not always. Okay, I'm going to add some little tiny areas to make it look like, I don't know, leaves are going to be there later. And then I'm going to wash my brush off to show perspective. I'm going to pull that down. Yeah, now it gets naturally lighter. Get a paper towel in case I done goof. because water's not always very blue. Water is pretty light and it's reflected by the sky, so I don't want it to be perfectly blue, because right now my sky isn't perfectly blue, making the edges uneven. I can go back into the distance using my paper towel to lighten it up. If I go side to side like this, it's going to look like some streaks of water in there. Make it a little bit lighter in the back as it disappears, fades out. Oh, that's looking cute. Not too bad, not too bad. I'm going to start drying this off a little bit more so I can add some details. If it feels bumpy and stuff, then that still means it's wet. And it feels cold, that means it's still wet too. I feel like I need to have some more variety in here. Some more value. We can have some really big, like a bush up here where it looks like weeds of some sort. It just looks like two-way empty down here. You can even draw a squirrel or a moose or a bird sitting in a tree later, but right now I'm just doing some simple tree bushes, weeds. And I could make it look like those, I don't know, we always call them pussy tails, like those willow weeds or something. I don't know. What do you call those? It's by a creek. They've got little bobble things on them. I don't know. I'm not a creek person. They don't have a creek. Now I'm going to add some of this green because I think that looks really good along the edge of one of the sides of my water. So it looks like the land is deep right there. Well, it makes the water look like it's not just coming out of nowhere. And I want to add some around the edge of this to make it look like grass there. I'm doing some dry brush techniques where my brush is kind of wet, but this paper is pretty dry here. Again, you don't have to copy mine. I'm just showing you something cute and cool. And as it dries, I am going to add another layer. But this is a basic landscape. I've got a background, middle ground, and a foreground. Without showing like any really big detail, I am showing some perspective. Not too much. Just a little. Add some brown up in there too. And some little tree bush details in the back here, and it's still damp, so that stuff will spread out and that'll make it look like it's a really nice defined horizon line, and it will also darken the, oops, I got black. I usually don't use black when I do landscapes. It's going to darken the depth in here. I mixed together like my darkest colors, like blue and brown, to get those really deep dark areas. I usually save black for very last when I'm do super big details, super important details, not very big. And that's when we have to add the depth. And it will make it look like a richer, deeper perspective. So it almost looks like I'm adding black, but it's not. So it looks nice and faded in the background. No detail there, because the farther it is, the less likely you'd be able to see it. Get that brown and blue mixture. I think that worked together really good. A little bit of green if I needed it, but I think that looks really nice, in my opinion. And I usually add like, it's still too wet to add any detail, so I'm just going to keep bleeding. You can test out yours and see if you can like fix that or blend it in. And I think that's going to make it look more like a silhouette. Actually, that was a happy accident, right? I'm going to add some little detail going off to the side. And And then this will look less like a blob. There we go. Maybe there's another blob of a tree behind it, but now that I've added some detail here, it seems more believable. Just scribbling my paintbrush to make it random. If it gets too dark, remember we can lighten it if you don't like your drawing there, what you drew. I could keep on fudging around with this thing, but I've been painting for 20 minutes. So hopefully this helps you. And if you don't like how yours turned out, you can do another one. Just don't give up. Keep practicing. I'm sure it turned out just fine. Just adding another layer for depth, because I never quit with my depth. You can always make it richer and deeper. I made it too rich and deep there. I'm gonna fix that. There we go. That looks more like water. And then as this continues to dry, keep on adding little details to it, but mine is currently too wet. Have a good day.